Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did my unboxing and first look at the Copilot Plus PCs. And the one that was sent over by Lenovo really piqued my interest because it really checked all the boxes. It had a beautiful OLED display, high-res display, 90 hertz refresh rate, not 120, we'll get into that, although it is still gorgeous. A touchscreen display, an all-new design here as far as that beautiful color. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it has an all-metal design. It's absolutely rock solid in terms of the build. It just screams premiumness. And when you pick it up and when you take it on the go, it's thin, it's light, it's really everything you'd want out of an ultra portable. I'm seeing good battery life, I'm seeing excellent performance. It really is checking all the boxes, but it hasn't been perfect. But I don't think it's specific to this unit. I think it's in general with Windows and ARM, and there's some things they need to iron out, especially with these new Copilot Plus laptops running the Snapdragon processors here, the X Elite and of course the X Plus. But this one of course has the X Elite, the 78-100. We'll talk about all that and more in this review, but I think this is something pretty special from Lenovo and probably one of my favorites of the initial batch here released in 2024. Hey everybody, it's Andrew and this is my full review of the Lenovo Yoga Slim 7X, brand new for 2024. Coming up. Now, before we get to the unit itself, I just want to let everyone know, in the interest of transparency and full disclosure, I'm not being paid by Lenovo, I'm not being sponsored by Lenovo. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Lenovo is not getting copy approval. That means you're seeing this video for the first time, just like you. Now, this particular unit is on loan from Lenovo, and once this review is done, I'll be sending it back. Now, one of the things I love about this unit is its price, coming in at $1199.99 over at Best Buy. You could also go to Lenovo.com. That gets you 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of SSD storage in a beautiful cosmic blue finish. And it also has a Snapdragon X Elite, the 78-100 variant. We'll get into the performance numbers in a little bit. But to me, this is the best price out of the bunch in terms of price to performance ratio. I think you get the most for your money out of these new Snapdragon X Elite Copilot Plus PCs. Okay, let's start off with the design. This is an all-metal build. It's got a very strong finish on it. It's really rock solid, and I love the finish on it in terms of the color. It's called Cosmic Blue, but it does collect a lot of fingerprints, so you will be wiping it down. Now, one of the things I like about this is an ultra portable. It's thin and light. You could throw it in your bag. Now, in terms of the weight, it won't break your back when you're carrying this around, and that is because this is made with very light materials, and the overall build and design, to me, is one of the first-rate things about it. There is no doubt about that. Okay, let's check out the port selection, and there are not too many ports, but you do get two USB Type-C 4.0 ports on the left side, and they are full function, and they support 40 gigabits per second, and have support for Thunderbolt, as I was able to use my Thunderbolt SSD drive from Sir Brent without any issues on either one of those ports. Now, moving over to the right side is the kill switch for the webcam. I like that, more security and privacy, and you get your power button with an LED indicator light in it, letting you know the device is powered on, and finally, you get a third USB Type-C 4.0 port that is also full function. Notably missing, no USB-A, no HDMI, no SD card reader, and probably the biggest omission, no headphone jack. Now, to me, the star of the show has to be this gorgeous 14.5-inch 3K display that's 2944 by 1840. It also has a 90 hertz refresh rate, and it's also a 16:10 aspect ratio. Now, they're calling it the Pure Sight OLED display, and it is absolutely stunning. You get the really deep blacks, the super vibrant colors, the really high contrast. It's all there, everything you'd expect from an OLED display. That means you're also going to get excellent coverage from the color gamut here. You also get a very color-accurate display. So if you're going to do content creation in Lightroom, Photoshop, video editing, in say DaVinci Resolve, Studio 19, the one that's for ARM, of course, that beta version, that is also going to be good for this because it does have that excellent coverage of the color gamut and it is color accurate. So that is good. We'll talk more about that soon. But as far as this display, it has also a touch layer on it. So if you want to do pinch to zoom and navigate the OS with your finger, that worked really well. Now, with the 90 hertz refresh rate, you do get a little bit more fluid experience at, say, something like 60 hertz, but not quite as good as the 120 hertz we saw on, say, something like the Surface Laptop 7 that had 120 hertz refresh rate. So I would say 90 hertz is good because you're going to get a little bit more battery life. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the overall takeaway is this display is simply stunning. Now, watching HDR content on this has been great because this can peak in terms of brightness on HDR to 1,000 nits, which is pretty much unheard of on an OLED display, at least on these laptops that we've been seeing here, at least in 2024. That is what we're seeing here on this. Standard dynamic range over 500 nits of screen brightness. That has been great. Now, one thing to note, this is a glossy display, but not an overly glossy display. I think they did a good job on that coating there, but just be aware that you will notice some glare and reflections depending on your lighting conditions, but I've seen worse, that's for sure. And the other thing you need to be aware of with an OLED display, it uses something called PWM or screen flickering, and that some people I should say, are sensitive to that. I am not one of them, but I know some people are, so I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out. And the last thing I wanted to point out with an OLED display is something called screen burn-in, which is a long-term effect. If you are going to use this and leave a static image, you might get that. I haven't experienced it on this unit or any other unit on the modern laptops that use OLED technology, but again, I wanted to just bring that up to you. But the overall takeaway is this is an excellent display. I like the balance they went with here in terms of the 90 hertz versus the 120 to get a little bit more battery life out of it, but still give you a very smooth and fluid experience. It's extremely bright, it's extremely colorful, and it's an excellent display for pretty much everything you want to do with it. All right, so this is the camera on the brand new Lenovo Yoga Slim 7X running the Snapdragon X Elite processor here for 2024. Finally, have it in the studio, putting it through its paces. I'm really impressed. We'll talk about that, of course. But this is a 1080p camera. It's an IR camera. That means you can log in with face recognition with Windows Hello. There's also a kill switch for the shutter, of course, that will give you more security and privacy. You got to like that. Now, when it comes to the keyboard, this has those familiar U or smile-shaped keys we know from the Yoga line. Very good tactility, key travel, and the overall feedback have been excellent. Now, typing out long documents, emails, and the like have been excellent on the Slim 7X. It also has a multi-stage backlight that worked really well. The white LED backlight against the dark keys are easy to see the contrast, so very good for getting work done. That is going to be great, especially in a dimly lit cabin in an airplane. That will work out great. Now, as far as the touchpad, it is a nice size touchpad. It's a glass touchpad. It worked well in terms of scrolling, doing all the gestures. Now, one thing I wish it did have, but again, at this price point, I'm not going to ding them too hard, is there is no haptic touchpad like you get on the Surface Laptop 7. But the Surface Laptop 7 is a more expensive device. This comes in at $1,200. That one comes in at $1,349 starting and goes up from there. So I can see the difference there, but as far as this touchpad, it works fine for what you need it to do. Now, as far as the internals are concerned, the RAM is soldered into the motherboard, and this is running that very fast RAM, running at the 8,500 megatransfers per second. It's LPDDR5X RAM, and this unit has 16 gigabytes of that RAM, and I would say that is working really well. It's running in dual channel mode, so you're going to get the maximum performance out of that RAM. Now, of course, it is soldered into the motherboard, not upgradable by the user, but what is upgradable is the SSD. Now, they're using the smaller form factor, 2242, as you see here, as opposed to the M.2 2280, the full-size form factor. Here you get the M.2 2242, smaller form factor, but it is getting certainly fast enough reads and writes for what you need this laptop to do, and having the ability to swap out for more storage is always welcome in my book. Now, when it comes to the Wi-Fi, you're looking at Wi-Fi 7 and a Bluetooth combo card. Both the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth are both working flawlessly, and I love the fact that it is Wi-Fi 7, making it a little bit more future-proof. Now, when it comes to the processor, this is running the Snapdragon X Elite. Now, of course, there are different variants of that. We have the X1E 78100 here, which is perfectly fine. Although you don't get the dual-core boost you get on, say, the 8100 or the 84100. We'll see that on the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge. That review on that 16-inch coming this week. Now, as far as on battery versus plugged in, we are noticing a difference in multi-core here. Not a big difference in the single-core. Now, when doing everyday tasks such as Microsoft Microsoft Office, email, web browsing, everything worked well. In terms of the native ARM apps, everything worked very smooth, no hiccups, very fluid. And the single and multi-thread performance here in general has been very good. And if you're using this for everyday tasks, sticking to the native ARM apps, you're going to have a very good experience. And so far, that is exactly the case. When you look at a synthetic benchmark such as Geekbench 6 with a single core score of 2455, in line with other Copilot Plus PCs that we've been seeing here, as well as a multi-core score here of 13,612. And of course, this is in line with other Snapdragon X Elites, especially the 78-100. Not quite as good a multi-core score as we're going to see on that Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge 16-inch. Now, when it comes to the graphics, the integrated Adreno graphics, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, are not quite as good as the Intel Arc graphics or even the AMD Radeon 780M that we've been seeing here. So I would just temper your expectations. Don't expect to do AAA titles on their highest settings. In fact, gaming has been a pretty much hit or miss proposition. Some games will work fine. Some games will be working, but not quite properly. And just some games won't load. So just be aware of that. Now, when it comes to 4K video editing, as I mentioned earlier, DaVinci Resolve Studio 19 in beta for Windows on ARM actually worked okay. I had no issue rendering a 4K video. That worked out okay. There were a few bugs here and there, but that's going to get better. And if you want, again, to do video editing in Premiere Pro with After Effects, that's coming soon. Not quite there yet, but Adobe will be releasing a version to work on Windows on ARM, so stay tuned. Now, good news, when I ran the TimeSpy stress test to see if this will thermal throttle, it got a score of 99.2%, meaning it detected virtually no thermal throttling under load. And that's a good thing. And when it comes to the surface temperatures, never getting overly hot where you place your fingers on the keyboard. I noticed it get around 45, 46 degrees Celsius where you plug in. So it heated up a little bit over there, but again, where you place your fingers, not an issue. And when you look at the underside under heavy load, never getting overly hot. It warmed up a little bit, as you can see by the hotspot, but nothing overly concerning here. And when doing everyday tasks, remaining cool. This is also one of the quietest laptops with a fan that I've ever heard. This is 35.5 at most decibels here, which is virtually undetectable. It's a low whirl. It's nothing to be concerned with. It's not too distracting. And when you're doing everyday tasks, really not pushing this all that much, it remains silent, which is what we like. And great news when it comes to battery life. When I ran my 4K video streamed over YouTube via Wi-Fi with brightness set to 40% in the balance mode with the 90 hertz enabled, it got 15 hours and 53 minutes, which is just shy, of course, not quite as good as a Surface Laptop 7, which was the king of the hill. We'll talk about that when I do get the 15-inch Laptop 7 into the studio this week. That's coming. But of course, this is going to be great for all-day battery life. That's exactly what I've been seeing. Real-world usage, I've been seeing all-day battery life, and that is great. Now, this does have that 70 watt-hour battery, which is on the larger side compared to some of the others here, especially for a 14.5-inch laptop. And I would say that everybody's use case is a little bit different, so just keep that in mind when you're looking at these numbers, because everybody will get a little bit different results. But I think the takeaway here is all-day battery life is certainly doable here on the Yoga Slim 7X. Now, the Yoga Slim 7X sports 4 speakers. They're Dolby Atmos, so that'll help with the spatial audio. Now, let's give it a listen. Okay, let's bring it all home, and using this for the last couple of weeks as my daily driver in a sense, because I think this really is the best of the bunch overall when it comes to price, when it comes to performance, when it comes to display. It's the total package, the best price to performance ratio out of all of the new Copilot Plus PCs. I like the gorgeous 14.5-inch 3K OLED display, 90 hertz, of course, 1,000 nits of peak brightness. You can't beat that. Good single multi-thread performance here, runs cool and quiet for everyday tasks. I love that cosmic blue finish. It's absolutely beautiful. Premium build and design. It's got an excellent keyboard and touchpad. And again, the starting price or the price here is very competitive at $11.99. The negatives here are the same negatives we've pretty much seen out of all the Copilot Plus PCs. The graphics here are going to be pretty much hit or miss. The x86 apps are a little bit of a hit or miss, although that's going to get better. Gaming is a bit hit or miss, and some driver issues for older peripherals, missing some AI features at launch. But again, I've gone over all of that. I think if you need an everyday general purpose laptop, you stick to the native ARM apps here, which are plenty. There are going to be Microsoft Office, email, web browsing, everything working very well. You're going to have a great experience because you're not only going to get very good performance, you're going to get excellent battery life in a gorgeous design here, as well as having a stunning display. So the overall takeaway is the Lenovo Yoga Slim 7X here for 2024 is a definite winner and earning my editor's choice for the 14.5-inch ultra portable category. So please hit the like button, please subscribe, please share this video. Don't forget to leave a comment in that comment section below. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's a device or something out there you think I should review. I'll do my best to try to make that happen. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. And don't forget to check out my website, amdtechreviews.com. So until next time, this is Andrew, and I'll see you in the next video.